We are at take 100 of the Tino Take, and we have a very interesting development. Oh, that was early. Got our early warning system, came in early for this episode. So get that out of the way and express the rest of this with a sense of calm, but with the ambient sound still going on, with my still going on commute casting. Now, interesting development. I had a surprise in these days. If you're not familiar with Notebook LM, it's another kind of language model that allows you to have an AI assistant that allows you to specialize what it is that you're studying. So you can go to an AI assistant like ChatGPT, like Gemini, and you can use these in order to have conversations, in order to talk about different subjects and things of that nature. But if a particular language model, has not been trained on certain knowledge and certain information, then you'll have a limited conversation if you want to talk about that particular subject with your AI assistant. So what they've come up with is this Notebook LM, which basically allows you to add sources. So you can add PDFs, you can add YouTube videos, you can add different kinds of materials that you are interested in. That way you can conversate with your AI assistant on that particular subject. Now that's, for a lot of people, that is really refreshing, because I remember in the early days of ChatGPT that people were wondering, how can I communicate with my documents? How can I add this information or that information? And they found it a bit limiting. It was limited to what the model had been trained on, and people were obviously wanting to conversate and chat about things that they're interested in. So this Notebook LM actually allows for that now, because you can upload the material that you are interested in, that you may have on your computer, your ebooks that have been sitting around, and you have no one to really conversate with about a particular book that you read, that you may not know anyone who's read it, but you found it fascinating, and now you have this material that can be fed into a language model that then you can conversate about that particular subject, and the AI assistant has access to that information, which it can then feed back to you, and you can actually have a conversation about it. You can actually build up notes about it. You can learn, study. Now, Notebook LM has another interesting feature in which you can actually generate artificial intelligence generated podcasts, where the presenters sound like humans, conversate like humans, and they conversate based on the subject matter that you have entered in as the source of the material that you want to study. So if you upload a book that you've read, you can generate a podcast of two presenters, which are artificial intelligence presenters, and they conversate on that particular subject. So I thought to myself, well, here's an interesting idea. What if I include my podcast? What if I take my YouTube video and I plug it into this Notebook LM, and I generate a podcast in which the AI presenters are talking about what it is that I'm talking about? And I did that, and I was just blown away. I was blown away by the idea of how cool it was to hear another podcast talking about things that I was genuinely interested in. And so I did it once, and I called it I called it based on the name of the particular take. So I took take 96. We're on take 100 now. I took take 96, which was my initial one that got me launched again, that got me that took me off back into this world of podcasting, which I'm now referring to as commute casting. but that I won't be limited to commute casting, because I'm still smart casting. And when I have the opportunity, if I feel like doing this at home, then I'll get behind the microphone and turn on the computer and do maybe do some more professional sounding stuff. But that's not really the issue right now. That's not really the priority right now. The priority is to continue to push this forward, to continue to go forward and see what kind of innovations I can come up with, because this is what I'm passionate about. So I launched the first program. I launched the first episode, Take 96, and so I fed this into the Notebook LM, and then the language model generated a podcast in which they were talking about, these AI presenters were talking about Take 96 of the Tino Take. And so with that, what I did was I took that podcast that was generated, and I gave it the title Take 96, A Deep Dive, because in Notebook LM, the podcast that is generated is called Deep Dive. So essentially now what I have are two different podcasts that are being generated. One is the Tino Take, and the other one, which I do with my own thoughts and my own ideas. And then what I do is I generate an artificially intelligent podcast is generated with AI presenters who then discuss what it is that I've discussed in the take that I have selected. So now we have the Tino Take 96, and we have Take 96, A Deep Dive. And so what I've thought of doing now, I took that idea and then I pushed it forward. I said, okay, well, let's do a deep dive for Take 97. But because I know that in Take 97, I was talking about the natural life energy concept by Gary Null, I thought to myself, well, why don't I import the Gary Null's book, Who Are You Really? Understanding Your Life Energy, and let's see how that influences the AI generated podcast. And so what I did, because there is an option for customizing, what I did was I went into the customization option to instruct the AI presenters to focus on the actual take, the most recent take, but to also look at the previous episodes to have a historical context of the evolution and growth of the Tino Take. But with that, what I wanted to do was add information that the AI presenters could then use that information to better understand what it is that I have been delving into with my podcast. So I imported Gary Null's book on the natural life energy concept. I grabbed, I had it focus on the most recent of my podcasts, which was Take 97, and it was just a wonderful output. What came out was truly amazing. Hearing this other podcast, which now what I generated was Take 97, A Deep Dive. And what I did was I generated that with the inclusion of Take 96, as well as the inclusion of Gary Null's book, Who Are You Really? And just it came out this wonderful sounding podcast that actually talked about subjects that I'm interested in talking about. So I don't even know how to describe, I really don't know how to describe the feeling of satisfaction of this innovation, of this new development. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue working on that. It's going to turn into a kind of like a feedback loop where now as the idea that now I can not have to be concerned about an audience is refreshing, and it's strengthening, because now I realize I can feed into this all of the different subjects that I am interested in and start to have two different types of podcasts. One where I give my input, and then another podcast in which artificial intelligence gives me another output. So I input material, which is an output of me. It's information coming out of me. And then I input that, I feed that to artificial intelligence language model, which then outputs another type of podcast, which I actually enjoy listening to, because they are reflecting upon the things that I'm talking about, and I'm interested to see how this will evolve, because the instructions that I give are basically simple. The instructions that I give are to focus on the most recent episode of the Tino Take, but use the other previous Tino Takes in order to have a historical context for the evolution of the show. At the same time, what I'm going to then do is I'm going to actually include the deep dive podcast into the information that the language model will then process. So then the language model will not only have a historical context of the Tino Take, but they'll also have a historical context of what the language model and the AI presenters are feeding back. So there's this kind of feedback loop that's going to generate a conversation over time, which actually steers me in a direction to be able to have, well, I don't want to say co-host, but maybe co-presenters or co-podcasters or co-commutecasters. I don't know what to call them at this point, but it was wonderful to actually hear a podcast in which the ideas that I enjoy looking into and enjoy expressing, to have this kind of feedback from the AI presenters who are then presenting back my ideas. So that's the new development. I'm really excited about it. And I'm going to slowly evolve this to kind of see where it goes. I mean, as a dynamic assertive, I'm always fascinated by innovation. I am a trendsetter. And so having this innovative idea for me is always refreshing. Now I'm going to obviously add in some of the human design, which I've already done, and gradually build this up, and just to see what it generates, to see what kind of outputs come out of this, and see how this actually stimulates me to want to actually continue learning and studying, and not feeling alone into delving deeply into what it is that I am interested in studying. So I'm adding some more source materials. I'm adding some more books to the language model. And I have a long-term plan in which at some point, because there's a limitation of the amount of sources that I can add, what I'll do is over time, then I'll start creating a source material in which the transcripts can go into one source. So what'll happen is, once I reach my limit, because I think there's a limit of 50, you can add 50 different sources. And those 50 different sources can be up to 500,000 words. So 500,000 words is plenty of material to work with. So when I reach the limit of 50, what I'll do is I'll take the transcript from, let's say, the Tino Take 96, and I will take the transcript from the Tino Take 97, and what I will do is I will combine those two. I'll remove the YouTube link because that won't be necessary, and I'll take the transcript and I'll add the transcript to one source. So it'll be the Tino Take transcripts. They're kind of an archive. So each time that I need to remove one link in order to add another one, what I'll do is I'll take the transcript from those particular shows and add them to one source, which will be, the historical records of the transcripts of previous shows, to see over time how that continuously evolves and how this feedback loop inspires me in order to be able to produce other programs to keep going forward with this. Now, I'd like to end this on a particular note that I thought of yesterday after the show was done, when I was speaking to my younger self. And I knew that I was going to be forgetting things, and I knew that it would pop back into my mind. And what popped back into my mind, what was very important, and something that I experienced over all of these years, and something that I would say to my younger self, and that is, do not play the martyr when you are broadcasting. you're a dynamic assertive, and dynamic assertives can become victim of the martyr complex, where you want to fight for a cause, where you want to insist on sacrificing because you think something is right. And so the thing that I would say to my younger self is that, in a certain sense, with a certain limitation, respect the platforms and the rules of the platform. Now, I'm not into censorship. I don't think censorship is a good idea. I think it's dangerous in many circumstances. And if we are in a world that respects the freedom of speech, then censorship really, in the way that it has gone down in the years, is something that is really uncomfortable, especially if you're a broadcaster, especially if you're a public speaker, especially if you're into putting your ideas out there into the world. Censorship is uncomfortable. And I've been censored over the years. I've said some things on platforms that the platform rules didn't agree with it, or the so-called community didn't agree with the things that I was sharing. And, if I'm to be honest, I knew it. I knew that I was being rebellious. And what I would say to my younger self is that over time, the evolution of what goes on with technology and the internet will allow you to have different platforms for the expression of different ideas. It's not necessary to be insistent on using a platform because, let's take YouTube, for example. So, a broadcaster wants to get on YouTube, a YouTuber wants to get his ideas out there, knows that there's a massive audience, and so understands that platform is a major platform which can connect you to a very large audience if you are successful. Now, if you are on that platform, and that platform then has guidelines and has rules which suggest that certain subjects should not be talked about, I would say to my younger self, avoid talking about them. Don't play the martyr role to say, I have my rights, because I've always said to people, look, if you have a free account at YouTube, if you have a free account on any platform, if they're giving you this platform for free, you shouldn't act like your profile is yours. You shouldn't act like your channel is yours. It's not yours. It doesn't belong to you. You are being offered this opportunity to use a platform that belongs to somebody else. They're giving it to you freely. However they make their money off of that platform, that's their business. But it's not yours. Mind you, if there are laws that regulate these things, that's all fair and well. People who are being deplatformed but do not have a legal redress, then, you're just complaining for nothing. Go to another platform where your ideas will not be censored, because it's pointless to play the martyr. This is me talking to my younger self. So if anybody out there disagrees with me, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to my younger self and say, don't play the martyr. Don't do the martyr thing. It's not necessary. There are dozens, hundreds of platforms where you can share your ideas, where the rules are different. If a particular platform allows you to express a limited portion of the things that you're interested in, then focus on those things. Don't play the martyr role, because as a dynamic assertive, you have that tendency. And there's something that I constantly remind myself about the history of martyrs, and something that all martyrs have in common, and that is that they're all dead, right? There's nothing valuable in dying for a cause. That's my personal opinion, and I stick to that. I once saw, I don't know if it was a movie or a documentary or if I read it somewhere, that Mahatma Gandhi, when he was in prison, they were negotiating some points in which, he was basically saying, listen, I'm going to remain in prison until you come to the negotiation table about certain points that we want to have addressed, and his followers were all rooting him on, and they're happy for him, and and they're great, thinking this great man is playing the martyr. He's being the martyr. And I remember that at certain point, Gandhi actually compromised. You know, he went to the negotiation table. They weren't willing to give all of the demands that he have, the attention and what it is that he actually wanted. And he sat down and said, well, you know, I want these things. And so the other side, the people on the other side, the opposition, if you will, basically said, okay, well, these things we're not going to be able to give you, but these other things we may be able to give you. And this is what we want from you. So Gandhi, in order to be released from prison, mind you, so Gandhi said, okay, well, sounds reasonable enough. When he got out of prison, his followers and certain people who surrounded him basically said, you know, why did you do that? You compromised. You know, they basically wanted him to just stay in prison until he got exactly what he wanted, even if that may have been never. You know, that's that martyr complex. And Gandhi said, listen, we're in a struggle here, and so we need to take what it is that we can get when we can get it based on the sacrifices that we're making. Yeah, I made some compromises, but now I'm a free man and we can go back to the drawing board. You know, we take the gains that we have achieved, we go back to the drawing board and see if we can find another way to push forward the demands that we have and the things that we feel that we need as a group. So, you know, I thought that was wise. I thought that was very wise. And it's something that made me reflect over the years of thinking, you know, is this martyrdom thing, is it really that heroic? I mean, people praise these martyrs and, okay, fine and well, they may have done some good things, but at the end of the day, what they accomplished at the end of the day of being a martyr, having the title of a martyr as if it's a good thing, is that you're dead. That's what a martyr means. Somebody who dies for what they believe in, somebody who dies for a particular cause. At the end of the day, they died, whereas they could have retreated and sought to live out more of their life to influence people in order to gain more progress, to gain more benefits, rather than sacrificing the life. You sacrifice a little bit of time, but at least you're still here to try to influence other people to find a way to do things in a non-violent way. Because mind you, remember, Mahatma Gandhi was about non-violence. So the fact that you would die for your cause, die for what you believe in a certain sense is a form of violence. You're being violent with your own life. Whereas he was saying, no, that's not necessary. So this is what I would say to my younger self. Don't do the martyr thing. If you're on a platform, then respect the rules of that platform. You have so many ideas. You have such a spectrum of ideas, a broad range of ideas. You're a dynamic assertive. You're in gate 43 of the human design. You have gate 43, so you're not going to run out of insights. Don't go down that path, because it's not worth it. It really isn't that worth it. You know, and I can tell you as your older self that over the years, you never really gained an audience of millions of people. So it's not like it's not like you sacrificed a huge audience. What you sacrificed is your inner peace and the tranquility that you've always desired in wanting to express your thoughts and ideas. Okay, well, that's it for take 100 of the Tino Take. I really appreciate everyone taking the time to listen.